In a village nestled deep in the mountains, there lived a woman known only as the Healer. Her real name was a mystery to the villagers, who rarely spoke of her in anything but hushed tones. She had appeared in the village many years ago, a stranger with a strange presence. But somehow, over time, she had come to be both feared and revered. Her small cottage sat near the edge of the dark forest, where the trees grew thick, their branches twisted into odd shapes that seemed to form secretive, shadowy tunnels. Her skills as a healer were undeniable. When sickness or injury struck, the villagers turned to her without hesitation. She could heal broken bones with a touch, cure fevers with herbs, and her potions worked faster than any remedies the village doctor could offer. People whispered that her knowledge came from the ancient forces of the forest, passed down through generations of women like her. But there were other things they whispered too, things they didn't dare say aloud. No one had ever seen the Healer during the day. She was always gone when the sun was high, and her cottage was dark, even when the village seemed to burn in the heat of midday. It was only at night, when the moonlight filtered through the trees, that she would emerge, always silent, always watching. Her long black hair would swirl around her like a shadow of its own, and her pale skin would shimmer in the moon's glow, making her seem more like a ghost than a woman. One winter, a terrible illness swept through the village. No one knew where it had come from, but soon it claimed the lives of children and elders alike. The village doctor was powerless against it, and the villagers feared they would lose more lives to the sickness unless something drastic was done. It was then that Mara, the young daughter of a farmer, fell ill. Her parents were desperate, and with no other options, they turned to the Healer, despite the warnings they had always heard. Mara's condition worsened, and the doctors gave up on her. Her parents, heartbroken and afraid, made their way to the Healer's cottage one evening. As they approached, they could hear soft, eerie humming drifting through the air, the kind of melody that could soothe the soul but also unsettle the spirit. The door creaked open before they could knock, and the Healer stood before them, her face hidden in shadow. "I've been expecting you," she said in a voice that sent a chill down their spines. Her eyes gleamed, reflecting the light of the moon. The parents, without hesitation, begged for her help. "Please save our daughter," they pleaded. The Healer smiled, her lips curling ever so slightly. "I can help her, but I must have a price in return." She stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming. "What do you ask?" Mara's father asked, voice shaking. "Nothing but a favor," the Healer replied. "I'll save your daughter's life, but you must give me something precious to you in return. You must offer me your trust and your soul." The parents were struck with fear, but their love for Mara pushed them forward. Desperate, they agreed. Mara's health began to improve almost immediately. Each day her fever would subside, her breathing became steady, and her strength returned. The villagers were astonished at the speed of her recovery. The Healer's name was spoken with awe, and some even began to say that she was no mere mortal, that her power was beyond the understanding of the villagers. But as time passed, strange things began happening. The villagers noticed an increase in the number of missing animals, and the once quiet nights were now filled with unsettling whispers that echoed through the woods. The air became thick with a sense of unease, and people spoke in hushed voices about the Healer. What was the true price of her help? What had she really taken in exchange for saving Mara? One evening, Elias, a young man from the village, decided to find out for himself. He had always felt a sense of unease around the Healer, and the recent events had pushed him to the edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unnatural about her, something dark and sinister hidden beneath the surface. That night, he ventured to her cottage, determined to uncover the truth. The village was eerily silent as he walked toward the edge of the forest. He could feel the trees watching him, their gnarled branches reaching out like fingers, as if trying to pull him deeper into the dark. When he reached the cottage, the door was slightly ajar, and the Healer's voice, sweet and melodic, echoed from within. "Elias, come closer." The invitation was irresistible, and Elias, against his better judgment, stepped inside. The air was colder than he had expected, and a strange stillness hung over the room. The Healer was standing by the hearth, her back to him. She turned slowly, her long hair drifting as though it had a life of its own. "I knew you would come,"